Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming out. I understand this is the last presentation in this hall, so it's great that they left the best one till the end. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to Mirasol Resources, a company that's focused on exploration. Of course, the disclaimer, you can read at your leisure. A few things that I just want to touch on here is the fact that Mirasol, since its inception back in 2003, has been focused solely on what I still consider the prospective jurisdictions of Chile and Argentina. And the reason we did that was because the founders of the company, which I am one of, had decades of experience prior to forming Mirasol. So it was logical to stick in those two jurisdictions. So obviously decades of experience, in-country permitting and operating expertise, which is all important in those jurisdictions. We've maintained, since 2005 going public, a conservative share structure with significant insider ownership. And as we speak, the machinery is currently going up the road to the hill to launch our 2025-26 exploration at our flagship property, Zurich, in Chile. Just stopping quickly on share structure and treasury. Last financials were $1.6 million. We've taken on a $3 million friendly loan from one of our major shareholders and the director of the company. Shares outstanding at the moment, about 82 million. Market cap around 37. So of that 82 million, directors and management hold 26. Institutions around 17. High net worth 15. And of course, retail the rest. Before we get into Zurich as our flagship property, you can see it sitting there in north central Chile. All the valuation on our share is on Zurich. Mirasol has a very deep portfolio of properties in both Chile and Argentina, and we were receiving no value. So we made a corporate decision to look how we can unlock the value of the rest of the portfolio. So we made a decision to actually try to monetize some of the other projects in the portfolio. You can see there's lots scattered out there, and we've actually made some pretty significant progress over the last 6 months on this. Just quickly on this slide, the cash flow from the projects we've actually got into option to sale agreements over the last 6 months in the next 5 years could bring in about $17 million Canadian. And there's a significant value attached to the potential value of the royalties applied to each one of those with the buyback clauses and whatnot. So BD has been going very well. It doesn't pay for all of our exploration, but it certainly helps. And it's a non-dilutive alternative financing method. Zurich. So how did we get up here? Mirasol was born and raised as a project generator. Back in 2016, we were looking for basically gaps up in the Chile-Argentina high Andes. What I mean by gap, there was not many projects, advanced projects or mines. And here we got the Maricunga district to the north of us, very endowed in projects and mines. To the south of us, we have the Al Indio. So what we were looking for is those gaps with those north-northwest structures with the right geology. So in this case, we staked our Zurich property. And obviously, looking at it today, it was the right decision because we now have a strategic position up in the newly emerging and actually globally recognized Vicuña district at this very moment. So if you look at the map on the left, all the orange properties are 100% staked on open ground, unencumbered Mirasol. And the yellow properties was a consolidation effort with a company called Soquimich in Chile that we brought in that package to give us more exposure there. So up here at Zurich, we're surrounded by titans. Obviously, the BHP Lundin acquisition of Filo about a year ago for the tune of about $4.5 billion, the highest purchase price of a copper junior in history, has amplified the interest in our property on the Chilean side. So we have BHP and Lundin up here with Filo del Sol and Jose Maria, NGX with Lunahuasi and Las Salados on the Chile side. Out to the west of us, we have a big package with Barrick, and to the south of us, we're more or less encapsulated by Codelco, which is Chile's state copper mine, obviously. So it's a pretty active area and not much room to move at the moment. So now Vicuña district, giant copper, gold, silver district, as I said, becoming globally renowned. With our consolidated package on the Chilean side, which is, the gray background is all Chile, and to the right is Argentina, obviously. We've got over 15,000 hectares within that consolidated package. Interesting here on our Sobek North in the southeast corner, we're about 3 kilometers across from Lunahuasi, which resides up on the Argentine border. We're 3 kilometers across in Chile. And where Filo del Sol resides, we're about 7 kilometers directly west on what we think is developing into a parallel north-south structure, somewhat similar to what hosts Filo. Now, of course, this is high Andes. This is 5,000 meters of altitude. But it's not what I would call remote because it's only a 3-hour drive from the mining hub called Copiapó in north-central Chile. And we get in from the airport basically on 114 kilometers of paved road. And then we come in on that road sketched on the map here. You can see it coming through the Rosita property. And that road comes right through our property and then off into Chile, or off into Argentina, because Filo del Sol actually uses that road to access their property. It's much easier to get into Filo del Sol from Chile than it is from Argentina. So we've got a bit of a luxurious position there because it's basically a gravel highway that's maintained on a daily basis for us. So I think we're advancing towards discovery up here at Sobek. Over the last several seasons, from 2021 until now, we've done lots of systematic and thorough exploration. We've done lots of helicopter-supported airborne geophysics, obviously property-wide stream sediments and prospecting. We've come back to the areas that our airborne mag pointed out to us, maybe the hotspots, covered that with another 500 kilometers of heliborne MT. And then on those prospects that we thought were looking best, we've obviously done lots of detailed grid-based geochemistry and also in-house ground-based electrical geophysics. On the right-hand side, I'm just blowing up the Sobek Central area. And the idea here is to show that we're looking at some considerable scale now, some critical mass. From the vein zone down to 46 South there, that's 3 kilometers. Then across further to the east, we have Rosita. So we're showing some considerable potential, large scale with lots of prospects in a large strike length. If we look at the vein zone just briefly, we were up here before that road existed. We put that road in. We actually finished it early last season. But in the early days, going up on horseback and walking up with boots and backpacks, we were finding these nice sheeted zones of M veins, typical quartz, magnetite, Maricunga type veins with copper and gold in them. The highest results to date, actually, which are pretty significant on this type of mineralization, is 5 grams gold and 0.22% copper. We got nice gold in the thin section work. So it was really interesting. But once we could get the crews up with the roads and the vehicles up there and the geophysical crews, we actually thought that would be our first drill target. But it turned out that things were looking a little stronger, and based on some of our heliborne MT lines, we thought, let's continue south. So actually, I've got the road now pushed all the way down to 46 South, and that's where we have been striving to get for several years. We're just about ready. That's going to be drilled, or starting to be drilled, before the end of the year. But on the way down, we went by the vein zone south, and you can see good gold results on surface, good geology, and in the longitudinal section underneath that flight line, you can see a very nice cylindrical-shaped MT anomaly, draped with what looks like good alteration in a structurally controlled basin. So that's a drill target on its own right. So the vein zone and the vein zone south will be drilled in time, but we're concentrating on the 46 South. On the left, if I remove all those gray areas, the right shows what's really interesting here. That big 6 kilometer by 6 kilometer RTP Helix mag anomaly. There's a smaller one to the northwest that sticks out of the ground partially. Quartz diorite and porphyry intrusive with some quartz and tourmaline veining. And the one on the right, the big one, I think is a deeper seated intrusive center that's actually the motor driving the hydrothermal fluids, which are mineralizing all those prospects you see within that circle. Now, 46 South is the one that we're most interested on. You can see it resides on the southernmost cusp of that anomaly. And also to the south of it, you have a nice blue zone, which could be magnetite destruction, which is usually caused by hydrothermal alteration. And the controlling structures are north-northwest that are emplacing these big mag units. I talked about our grid-based soil. You can see here as we move north to south, pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden, when you get over top of that nice mag susceptibility anomaly, the geochem really pops up. You've got a good, strong, and large coherent soil anomaly in copper, in moly, and in gold. So that's really interesting. So let's zoom in to what's happening here. You can see there's two different kinds of breccias. Tourmaline breccias, and what we found late last season was a nice high sulfidation epithermal type of breccia. Now in the Chile porphyry model, tourmaline is important because you got the volatile fluids pooling on top of the porphyry under pressure, exploding to surface, and expressed as tourmaline breccias. So geologically speaking, it's nice to have those breccias there. And of course, the high sulfidation epithermals, in a preserved model, the high sulfidation is above the porphyry, generally speaking. You can see also those are both hosted on the intersection of north-northwest with north-south structures. Both of them have the same structural configuration. So if we step back a little bit, you can see on the left, that's our soil anomaly again. This time we're looking at MT heliline 1810. So on the right-hand side, we have the longitudinal section underneath that. So the first big anomaly is actually 46 South, and the one off to the right is Rosita 40. What's interesting here, these are coincident MT and mag susceptibility slice mag anomalies. But what's really interesting, they both roof out at the same topographic elevation, about 4,500 meters elevation. The district-wide roofing control in the Vicuña district at Lunahuasi, Filo del Sol, the targets that Mogoti showed in the morning, and here at SOPEC is at that 4,600 meter topographic control. So that's really interesting. The one on the left here, the anomaly, is about 800 meters below surface. You go to the right, down topography at Rosita, it almost breaches the surface. And it's got 5.4 copper and almost 4 grams gold in some scree samples there. But we think the one on the left here, SOBEC 46, has all the ingredients to make a really strong target, so we're going to go after that 800 meters below the surface. We did our in-house mapping of that area where the breccias reside, and you can see 500 meters below the hydrothermal breccia, you've got a beautiful chargeability anomaly. Obviously, chargeability is when you pump electricity into the ground, it hits metal and lights up like a light bulb. My light bulb's at 500 meters below the first breccia. When you do IP, you get chargeability, you get resistivity. Obviously, a nice, big, strong resistivity anomaly, which can relate to silicious rocks or silicified rocks. I'm hoping that's silicified rocks within that high sulfidation epithermal system. You can see the IP line trending north-south right through the center of the anomalies and the breccias. So if you put this all together, here we've got our deep-seated porphyry target, which is represented by both MAG and MT. It's overlined by a nice chargeability anomaly. And what I've got here is a conceptual hole planned. This hole will be started to be drilled around the 1st of December. But there's one thing I want to do before I drill, but I'll continue here. That hole is intended to test underneath the geochem, test underneath the breccias, go right through the guts of the chargeability, and test the top of the porphyry model here. Now, what I want to do here is actually some deep vectoring IP and ground-based MT, and that's been very successful in other projects. A good example is Altar, across the way in Argentina. You can see here how the MT anomaly really lighted up the United prospect, which is in between Altar Centro and Altar East, and they've been drilling that and joined the two porphyries up. So it's really a good system to really define your drill target. And what it does for us, it narrows the target window, structure, conductivity, plus sulfides, improving the probability that this hole will be mineralized, and also reducing costs for the hole, because drilling up there is expensive. So that's what we're setting out to do. We've basically got 2,000 meters budgeted at this moment, and I'm kind of in my mind thinking 2 1-kilometer holes. But obviously, if that hole that I've got here is the conceptual hole, gets to that 1-kilometer depth, and it's good mineralization or alteration, looks good, we'll just punch that further down. So I can easily see us using up 1,500 meters of that 2,000 in one hole. But if that's the case, that's going to be a good outcome because we've hit something important, and I can easily finance more holes until the end of the season. The end of the season, obviously, up here is around June. We've worked up to June 15th. We're usually out in May. We've just got started. Here we say October. So it's really important for a junior company like us, the news flow and the catalyst. So obviously, we're going to continue to execute on our business development. We're going to put news out when we start the exploration crews working on the ground. Once the drill starts, the first hole results probably out first week in February. Get that second hole drilling the first part of the quarter of 2026, and probably reporting results from that by the end of the first quarter of 2026. So keep your eye on the ball here, and hope you enjoyed the story.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you so much. And that concludes our session here this afternoon. Really excited to inform you that at 4:45, Mark Faba and Grant Williams will be joined by Danielle Camboni here on stage for a nice fireside chat. So please stay around and listen to that as well. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.